Hi, this is a quick demonstration of how to use the Vermicompost worm density calculator at vermibase.com. And we have this calculator that you can figure out how many worms you need, or what the total weight of the worms ought to be. You can figure out how much space you're going to need in order to host that many worms, and then also you can find out the amount of organic waste that they eat every day, which is mostly where a lot of people will start. And then an important part is you want to find out how many worm castings you need. So you can go in here and fill in any of these values at any of these places, and then hit the get results, and it will calculate everything else for you. So let's get started and take a look at this real quick. Let's look at how much waste that you consume every day, and for a small family, that could be 1 to 2 pounds. That's not uncommon. You've got fruits and then vegetable waste and things like that. So let's just quickly take a look at just 1 pound. Make it simple to get started. And we've got 1 pound of organic waste every day. So how many worms would it take to consume all of that? And how much space are we going to need? You know, we've got to need a great big box or a little bitty box, or what are we talking about? And then how many of the castings are we going to have every day, so we'd be able to put that in our garden and help our plants and everything? So what are we looking for that? So if you needed a particular amount of output, you could also calculate from there, and then you'd know all those other things. So let's take a look at this organic waste that we've consumed, or we would have to consume every day, just to 1 pound. So we click on the get results, and we find out we need 3,300 worms. Wow, that's a lot of worms. A lot of people think that, you know, just 1,000 worms you can do an awful lot of stuff, and you can. It's okay for a kitchen, you know, for a small house, 1 or 2 people perhaps. 1,000 worms will do it, but it does take a lot of worms to really consume all of this food. And if you've really got 1 pound every day, then you're going to need about 3,000 worms, or a little more than that. So the total weight of the worms, most of the time that doesn't matter, except if you're purchasing worms. You might want to say, well, how many, you know, I want to buy the pound. Well, okay, then you need to get about a little more than 2.5 pounds, 2.5 to 3 pounds of worms, and you're going to get around 3,000, a little over 3,000 worms in that. Now, all of these numbers are a little bit approximate, because we've actually taken the time to weigh the worms one at a time. We took 1,000 worms, and we weighed each one of them and took the average value of that, and that's what these are. Now that means that we had some skinny worms, some fat worms, some that were a little bit older, some that were a little bit younger, but we just took an average 1,000 worms, and we took the time to actually weigh each one of them, so we could make this calculator as accurate as we possibly could. And we watched that of what they can actually consume, and we weighed the organic waste, and we looked at every day how much of it was consumed. We've watched this over time, so these are based on real numbers here. These are not based on somebody on the internet going, oh yeah, 1,000 worms will eat 10,000 pounds of garbage every day. It doesn't work that way. These are real numbers based on real observations, and with other professionals that really know what they're talking about. This is the kind of numbers that you're going to have. Yours will vary slightly one way or another, obviously, because of your temperature, humidity, pH, moisture, all kinds of things. You know, do you feed your worms? You keep them in the sun, you know, and never feed them? Well, they're not going to eat much. Or if you give them way too much and it's too dry or too wet, then they don't produce as well. So these are optimal conditions, but these numbers are really true. So you can use them in any way you like. So let's say, for instance, here for our 1 pound of organic waste, we've got we need 3.2 square feet, or about 1/3 of a square meter. So you can figure that up. Now this is on the top of a box. This is not the depth of the box. The depth of the box can vary, because it's just like being in the earth. I mean, the earth can go down miles and miles, but the worms are only going to live in the top 6 inches or so of the space. So anything that you've got over about 10 inches typically is a pretty good place to kind of start. And some of the worms will go down a little further, and some of them most of them will stay up at the top. So if you start off with 4 to 6 inches worth of material in a bin to get started, and then you're going to put some bedding of some kind in there, some old egg cartons, or perhaps some shredded up newspaper, thing like that. Then you're going to have a nice bedding for them, and then you start putting your food on top of that. So you put 4 to 6 inches of food on top of 2 or 3 inches or 4 inches of bedding material. That's a great start for a worm bin, and you'll see a lot of videos on how to start that. We have a lot on our YouTube channel, so just take a look at those. So let's keep going with this calculator and see what else we have. A lot of people talk about, well, the 1,000 worms. That's a good base to start. You buy 1,000 worms. Well, okay, let's see what the 1,000 worms really can produce, how much they're going to eat, how much space you're going to need, so on and so forth. And so we've got here that the 1,000 worms is going to be a little less than a pound, and you need 1 square foot. That's pretty standard, 1 square foot per 1,000, and you're going to have about 1/3 of a pound of organic waste consumed every day. So for a home with 1 person, that's pretty easy to hit 0.3 pounds per person per day. Depends on what you use, but if you put your coffee grounds in there and you put your vegetable scraps and your fruit scraps, especially if you like bananas, you get a lot of excess from the banana, of avocados, and just all kinds of things. Lettuce, you chop that up and you get the little brown pieces. Throw that in your organic waste. It's pretty easy to hit 0.3 pounds. So this is kind of what you're going to get out of it. You're not going to have a whole lot of worms, 1,000 worms. You can put them in a little box, 1 square foot, like a shoebox size. That's about what that is. And probably don't want to use a shoebox because it's going to be made of cardboard and it will deteriorate over time. But something about like that. Get a small plastic container, one of those small tubs or something, and you can put 1,000 worms in there, and they'll be happy, and they'll eat your garbage, and then all of a sudden, after a little while, you've got some nice worm castings. So these are the kinds of things that you want to know, is how much they can consume. And so some people say, well, I've got 35 plants, and I need to get an output. I need to know how much I've got for that, and how much do I feed the plants of worm castings, and how much am I going to have to consume in order to do that? Well, so any way that you have it, you can come in here and put in your calculator, and it's either in pounds or in kilos. So it makes it real simple for you to use this. And let's just say that that you know that you've got 35 plants, and you want to feed them every couple of 3 months, and you can use about a good spoonful, a big tablespoonful of worm castings every couple of months. Your plants are going to be totally happy. I mean, that really is going to be great. And so what we found is in about a pound of the worm castings, about a pound, plus or minus, but these are good numbers to kind of go off of, then you're going to be able to have about 30 to 40 spoonfuls, and it'll feed about 35 plants in with a pound. So let's go in here and just put in 1 pound of worm castings. This is how much we want per day. Well, you don't want it per day, really. You want that every couple of months. But let's just say that you're going to do it per day. I mean, you're going to have a lot of plants, but you can kind of figure this out in your head and see how these things will change around. So if we're going to look for a pound of worm castings every day, then we're going to need, oops, why didn't we get that calculation come up? That's an interesting thing. We'll find out. There must be a little bug in our software, and we're going to figure that one out. But anyway, we've got here's 2 pounds. Why don't we get 1 pound? That's very interesting. That's definitely a bug we'll get fixed. Let's say 2 pounds, so we can take half of that. And we've got 33,000 worms to create 2 pounds of worm castings. So you're going to take half of that. You're at 15,000 worms. You're going to have a lot of worms to be able to create a pound or 2 of worm castings every day. They're going to be churning and burning. And you're going to need about 10 pounds of organic waste, or 5 pounds if we're taking half of that. So that's going to be a restaurant size or something like that. You're going to need a lot of organic waste to be able to get 5 pounds of it every day. We've worked with the kindergarten, and they feed 100 children a day, and we would get about 4 to 5 pounds, and that's liquidy. You know, they make juice and things, so there was a lot of real liquidy, heavy water that we'd get in there every day. So we could get 5 pounds a day, but that was still a lot of kids, and most of it being water. It wasn't really organic waste, so it was just really wet, and that didn't really count the same way. So anyway, that's a good look at our worm density calculator. You can find out how much from any of these numbers that you need. You can find out any of the other things that you'll need. And again, these numbers are based on real observed kinds of things, not just calculations we pulled out of the air. This is real, actual observation. So visit us at vermibase.com and go see our Vermicompost worm density calculator and calculate this stuff for yourself. And happy worming, and enjoy your vermicompost. It's the greatest stuff that you can do for your plants, and it's a great thing to do for the planet. Look forward to seeing you. Be sure to subscribe. We have other videos coming out every once in a while, and we're happy to share our knowledge of doing everything vermi from vermibase.com.